Okay, thank you guys for joining. Once again, tonight was sponsored by Elevate GN and SPM. Leilu Nishmat Esther Bat Eliyahu. Ruach Hanei Tinechem again, and actually her sol is this week, I think, Thursday. Thursday's the sol. So thank you to Jonah and the Khalid family for opening the home again. Opening the home. He said he told me he wasn't able to make it, but he said do it here anyway, so it's very nice of him. And the learning should be Leilu Nishmat, his late mother. She was really a superwoman in our community. This week's Parasha is Parashat Chaye Sara. So continuing our theme of spending a few minutes on the Parasha. This Parasha is a lot that goes on. It's called Chaye Sara because Sarah passes away. Sarah Imenu dies in the beginning. But later on in the Parasha, we have the encounter where Avraham Avinu sends Eliezer, his servant, or the Torah just calls him the Eved, to find Yitzchak a spouse, a wife. And in the yeshiva world, this becomes the Parasha that people speak about dating and about marriage, about Shiduchim, getting married. So it's a very stigmatized thing. I never speak about it. I really don't, in public forums, I don't like speaking about it. Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Adam is much more qualified to do it. I don't usually speak about it, but when it's Chaye Sara, you have to. The Parasha's main theme is this. So I always speak about it as one idea, and we'll speak about a small variation tonight. So the Torah tells us when Avraham sends his servant to find his son a wife, he says, Ki el artzi vel molati telech velakachta isha livni leYitzchak. Go back to my home, go back to my land, and find a spouse for my son Yitzchak from my hometown. So the question is why? What's the difference? There are non-Jews here and non-Jews there. That we'll discuss at a later time. But another thing I want to highlight that's very similar is the Torah teaches us something very important in this story. It's telling us our priorities and what we have to think for and be careful and mindful for when it comes to dating. And I'll put it in parentheses, not just dating, but this is half the work is before you get married. Most of the work is after the wedding day, making sure we prioritize this idea to maintain the love and the harmony that we have with our spouse on the first day. So what's the idea? The Torah tells us, and it's very clear as day, what we need to search for in a spouse. What's important and what we can, it's okay to bat an eye over. Eliezer, Avram's servant, was sent to do a very important job. Think about it. Yitzchak is our forefather. He's about to pick the spouse of our forefather that will be the Ima, the ancestor, the mother of the entire Jewish people. So it's not a joke. He has to be very careful to know what he's doing. So first and foremost, what did he do? He prayed to Hashem. So first and foremost, when he's on his mission, he prays to Hashem, do a kindness for the God of my master Avraham, do a kindness for me and for my master Avraham, help me find the one for my master Yitzchak in an easy and simple way. Okay, so the step one, obviously at all times when anything we want, when it's something like this magnitude, we have an obligation. Don't take our tefillah lightly. Don't take your prayer for granted. Don't take the power of our tefillah lightly. Our tefillah has incredible potential. It's so valuable. It's so important. And especially don't tell yourself, who am I? I don't do this well. I don't do that well. I barely pray. I barely pray my tefillah. I barely keep kosher. God forbid no one here is like that. But if someone knows someone that and hears them say that, it doesn't matter. Hashem is always listening, and our tefillot are always so powerful. And I always give this analogy about the current war in Israel. How every time I pray, we say 3 chapters of Tehillim every day for them in our kanisas. And I always have to take a second to think because I'm literally doing nothing here. The least I can do for our brothers and sisters that are in Lebanon and in Gaza, and unfortunately they're still dying every day, is pray because we're all connected. Pray, and maybe my tefillah will save him. The gun will jam, the grenade won't explode, the missile or whatever it is, the terrorist will trip and they can kill him first, whatever it may be. And we'll never know until after 120. But there's going to come a time when Hashem's going to come to us and say, those 650 chapters of Tehillim you said over the course of a year and a half, you saved 6,000 people. What? How? Each word, each line, don't take it for granted. And that's the power of the tefillah. with the war and with our lives of dating as well. But then what? The tefillah was answered. Eliezer's tefillah was answered by God. He gets, behold, Rivka, Najib, from the right family, exactly what he was looking for. And the Midrashim explained that it was so clear, it was so obvious how big of a tzaddiket she was, that the Midrashim, again, it's not a literal text, but the Midrashim say that the water, instead of her having to bend into the well, the water would somehow come up to her. The laws of physics and nature didn't apply to her, and miracles were happening for her, says the Midrash. Obviously, it's the right one. Obviously, it's clear as day that she's the one. But what does Eliezer do? And something so interesting. That what happens? He tests her again. In addition to the clear for who else would these miracles happen, he tests her again. And he says, can you please pour me some water for my camels and for myself? And he had a lot of camels. And it wasn't a simple task. But the question is, you don't see that she's the one already. You don't see, according to the Midrash, that Hashem is clearly on her side and is clearly indicating that she's holy and she's not like the average woman in this area. And the idea is that the Rav Shach says, it's actually very beautiful, we never, even if we see someone is capable of changing the laws of nature, when it comes to dating, that's not what's most important. When it comes to finding a spouse, there's even something more important than someone that can change the laws of nature. Why are they changing the laws of nature? You would think they're a huge tzaddik. They have a lot of, their tefillot are very powerful. They're very holy. In spite of that, Rav Shach says, we learn from here something even more important, that Rabbi Chaim says it in the same way, quoting a different story that we'll say on Shabbat. In spite of the fact that it's clearly how holy she is, he looks to see, does she have the right midot? Does she have the right character? What's her personality like? Yes, I know God is with her. Obviously she's holy and she's very special. But does that make her arrogant? Did that get to her head? And it's a little bit of a catch-22, because I think that God wouldn't reside himself in that way with someone who has arrogance. But no, Eliezer wants to make it clear as day, to make sure that her character, that her personality, that who she was as an individual met the criteria, because even though we know that God is with her from the miracles that are happening, it's not enough. We have to make sure that her character, her personality, her midot is there as well. And that's what Eliezer is teaching us. That the most important thing is the midot. After she checked off the midot and she brings all the water and feeds the camels and feeds Eliezer, does a huge chesed, all of the rest is a good positive as well. All that miracles happen for according to the Midrash and everything the Midrash talks about that's not in the literal text. But that's step one, and that's what Rav Shach and Rabbi Chaim always talk about when it comes to finding a spouse. It comes to looking and analyzing and making sure that the character of the person is refined and is beautiful. The inside needs to be more beautiful than the outside. And obviously goes without saying, that's one of the most basic Mashadi values as well. We have a term for it. We all use it very loosely. It doesn't literally mean that thing, but it's adopted this idea of nejabat, of being najib. Again, it's a bad translation, but whatever. It does the job. It means about internal modesty, someone that has self-value, has self-respect, has good midot, good character, that you want to be the mother of your daughters, the mother of your children, of your boys. That's the most important thing. And just to wrap it up, and the author of this book says it very nicely, there was a new trend when this book was written of going on blind dates and getting married blindly. That was a trend. I don't know where in what part of the world there was a trend to get married blindly, and it was so silly and so ignorant, because they treated getting married like buying a pie of pizza. Today I like it plain. Tomorrow I like the chocolate pie. Next week I like with ziti slice. Following week I want green olive, and then I want corn on my slice, and then back to regular. That's not marriage. Marriage isn't buying pizza. Marriage is very important. The halakha says you have to see her before you marry her. Blind marriage, not even blind date, blind marriage. Just because the ages are 4 years apart, that's what we're doing. And the idea is the most important. I don't know. He brings a story from places that started entering into Israel, but he says that the author was bashing this idea of what is this? It's not is that the whole point of marriage is so you want to live until 120 together, and you're going to build a building block that keeps growing in love every single day. And if you go on a blind date and the only thing you know about her is she looks good, that's not going to last. That's lust. That's not love. We'll talk about it another time. And he says, what's the secret? Unfortunately, why is divorce so high? And he gives a very, very nice line in Hebrew. Bimkom la'avod ala midot, ma'adifim la'achlif lepitriot. He says, instead of working on your character, they prefer to just get a different slice that has mushrooms instead. And the idea is as follows, that we've been so accustomed. Yeah, he gives the pizza mashal to finish it off like that. Yeah, it's very nice in Hebrew because it finishes with that rhyme. But he gives the example of getting married isn't picking a slice of pizza. It's an important decision that we need to spend time doing. And what's the secret about it? The secret is the midot. Nothing else. Everything else is secondary and third and fourth and fifth. The most important trait is what's their character? How do they conduct themselves? Are they honest? Are they down to earth? Are they modest, internally modest? And that's the idea of the parasha that Eliezer teaches us. And that's something that, why did I start off by saying it's not just the beginning, because it also applies to after. You can both be such perfect, such najib, so wonderfully innocent and kind and loving and giving people. But if you don't make sure you stay that way, once you get married, there's no guarantee that it'll succeed, it'll continue. The whole point is we have to constantly be working on ourselves to make sure that we are qualified and we are fit and our character and our midot are at par to remain in a healthy and loving relationship. So it's a two-pronged, it's a twofold thing. It's when seeking a spouse, the most important is who is she as a person? Is she kind? Is she loving? Is she caring? What does she care? Does she care about superficial things too much? Or does she care about more important values, about kindness, about giving? What did she do in her free time? She does chesed, she gives, or she only takes. All of these things are how you judge a person. But just putting the ring on it that's not the end of the story. Once the ring is on, and you're living together for years and years and years, and stresses build up, and problems occur, and everyone has problems. If you try to avoid problems, you're not living in this world. Everyone has problems. That's part of this world. When times are tough, your true nature, your true personality will come out. And that's when we need to be working on ourselves even more. Once the ring is on the finger and you guys are living happily ever after, that's when they both have to make sure that they're working on themselves, working on their patience, working on their kindness, working on their anger, working on their temptations, on the way they speak. A husband can say one stupid thing to his wife and she'll remember for the rest of her life. Working on being impulsive. All of these things are important before, but they're as important after as well. And it all stems from this week's parasha, from the fact that the Eliezer cared so much about who she was and not what she was. Who is she as an individual? Does she do chesed? Does she run to be kind? And once he found that out, Rivka became one of the imahot, and she's the mother of the Jewish women, of the Jewish people, for the rest of history. And that's the secret. The secret isn't what you are, it's who you are. Who you are as a person, and that's the most important thing we have to look into, not just when getting married, but also after you are married, working on every day, making sure both the husband and the wife keep their character in line, keep their midot in check, so they can live until 120 with their partner by their side. Chazak Baruch. Have a wonderful week, guys.